Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Citizen.
Hi, Rina.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hi.
Morning.
Morning, everybody. It's Ingrid Watson here. Can you hear and see me?
Yes.
Hello?
Hi, Ingrid. We can hear and see you.
Fantastic.
Hi, Ingrid. Good to see you.
And you. This is great. Well, welcome to room 2, where we'll be talking about work package 2.2. And it's great that we've got all our researchers here. So I'm going to ask if the researchers that were involved in this project to put their videos on, and briefly we'll go around the room for you to introduce yourselves. Please, I'll start. Ingrid Watson, I'm at the Wits Mining Institute. And I see Charlotte on my screen. I'll ask her to go next, and then Jill and Zeralda, and we've got Nancy and Rose. So go for it, Charlotte.
Morning, everyone. I especially want to say good morning to Jill because she's in Texas and it is 1 o'clock her time, I think, or just a bit later. So we are very proud of her for not sleeping and attending. And I'm from Better for Life and have worked with the Wits Mining Institute and through the Wits Enterprise on this project. Jill, would you like to go next?
Yeah, well, I am involved with Better for Life with Charlotte, and my section was to research all the formerly available training, digital type training for SATCAP and MQA, etc., etc. So it was an interesting journey.
Thanks, Jill, and great that you could join us. Rose?
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet everybody. I was very much involved in the creative side and getting everything looking good and just helping with the practicalities of things. So it's been a real privilege to be on the journey with all of you wonderful researchers. So hope you enjoy our module today.
Thanks, Rose. And Zeralda, lovely to see you too.
I'm Zeralda Uys. I'm from Kaleidoprax, and I was involved in this discovery of digital literacy and unpacking it from everything else. And like Jill, also discovered what's available and what's not available out there in terms of platforms and courses and unit standards, etc. And it was a great, interesting, stimulating journey. Nice to see you all.
Thanks, Zeralda. And then I'll hand over again to Nancy.
Good morning again, everyone. For those who didn't meet me earlier, I'm Nancy Coulson, and I'm a colleague of Ingrid's at the Wits Mining Institute.
Thanks, Nancy. And then also we had Mabe Mandlazi, and I think it's very pertinent, I suppose, that he is not here today because he's in an area with low digital poverty. He's not actually able to access remotely. So sadly, he's not able to participate in this workshop. And I think it really is speaks to some of the issues that we're going to raise in our presentation. So, but a very important member. So I'm going to start with the way that we're going to structure the session. We first got a presentation which presents the research findings, which Nancy and I are going to present. And then we are going to hand over to Charlotte, who's going to present the module that has been developed. And then there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end of that session. So I'm going to share my screen. And just want to check that you can all see the PowerPoint slides.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and I'm going to stop my video so that you can see that. Great. So welcome. This presentation discusses the research undertaken to understand the development of digital literacy skills for adult education and training, or AET learners, and for youth attending portable skills programs in the mining sector. The backdrop for this research is the rapid modernization of the mining sector and the growing reliance on digital technologies in mining. You know what, now I can't change slides. There we go. The Wits Mining Institute were tasked with making recommendations, identifying available teaching products, and showcasing what digital literacy training can look like in the mining sector. The research team you've just met worked on this project from June 2021. This presentation has been designed as part of what will be left behind at UJ and at the Mandela Mining Precinct, allowing others to access the results of the research. We have been working with a student researcher and young voiceover artist, but digital poverty, the lack of sufficient infrastructure and broadband have meant that they are not able to record this from their current locations. And therefore, Nancy and I will be presenting the script. My name is Marbi Mandlazi. I'm a mining engineer and researcher. I will be presenting an overview of the research findings and introducing the exemplar teaching module we developed. This research project got me thinking about how I learned my own digital skills. My smartphone was my entry into digital literacy. It is how I stay in touch with my family and friends, how I do my banking, and where I find information, music, and YouTube videos. When a new app comes along, I learn by trial and error or ask others to help me. I've learned most of my basic digital skills this way. Things changed for me when I started my studies in mining engineering. The big change was I used a laptop for online learning. Everything at varsity was done online. I paid my fees, accessed the library, submitted my assignments, attended lectures. Everything was online. I entered the digital world. I'm often asked, are computer and digital literacy skills the same? Well, there are overlaps, but they are not the same. Simply put, computer literacy is the ability to know how to use a computer. This includes knowing how to use a laptop and software programs such as Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Digital literacy is the ability to identify and use online technology confidently, creatively, and critically to meet the demands and challenges of life, learning, and working in a digital society. In other words, it is having the skills you need to live, learn, and work in a society where communication and access to information occur more and more through digital internet platforms and on social media. The digital world is growing fast. There are 5 main digital skills that we all need. These are to find information online, such as doing a Google search, to communicate online by talking over Zoom, Microsoft, or WhatsApp, to create digital content, such as posting on Facebook or making a TikTok video, to collaborate and manage content digitally, such as storing information in the cloud on Dropbox or working on the same document in Microsoft OneDrive, and to participate safely and responsibly online, such as knowing about online abuse.
Okay, so Marbi's now got another accent. So what did we find out about the digital skills amongst youth and AET learners in the mine? As a researcher, I interviewed youth and 8 learners on 2 modernizing mines. In total, I spoke with 30 learners attending AET programs, although not all of these learners were mine workers. At case study site 2, most of the AET learners were from the local community. I spoke with 8 young people who were part of portable skills training at the mine sites, We also interviewed another 14 managers and training facilitators about the digital skill needs of youth and AET learners. So what were our findings? The first thing I discovered is that youth and AET learners are like me. We learn digital skills by having access to devices like smartphones, tablets, and laptops. Youth and mine workers use smartphones because this is all they can access. All our respondents spoke about access being the most important first step. Access to devices and access to data and broadband. Nothing can happen without access. I also learned that young people and AET learners think digital skills will help them find work and or get a promotion at the mine. In fact, our respondents stated that the main reason to learn digital skills was to find more opportunities to earn a living. Without digital skills, our respondents struggled with online applications and new digital innovations at the mine. However, none of the research respondents understood how the world of mining was being transformed by digital technologies. For example, young women did not know that they will have a lot more opportunity for work on a mine once the mining process is managed through digital controls. Even managers and supervisors involved with training could not describe the modernization process at the mine. A lot more communication is necessary on a mine to keep all employees abreast of technology change. The term digital literacy was also not understood by our research respondents. Like me, they had all learned digital skills by trial and error and by asking others who knew more. So in summary, they knew they needed more digital skills, but couldn't tell me exactly what they were missing. The digital world evolves rapidly, and this makes it difficult for qualifications and skills programs recognized by the South African Qualifications Authority, or SATCAP, to keep up. Our research team conducted a desk review alongside the case study research and found that currently there are no unit standards registered with SATCAP that speak to our immediate requirements for digital literacy. This means there are no ready packaged skills programs that can be used to advance digital skills learning in a mine training center. Instead, registered unit standards in this area are largely focused on computer skills and are largely outdated. So how can mines address this gap?
Our research showed us that the very first step is to make devices and the internet available to youth and AET learners at mine training centers or at centers in the community. Evidence is showing that broadband infrastructure is necessary to develop a second economy in mining communities. For example, call centers servicing the global market are growing by as much as 30% in South Africa. Providing facilities in mining communities that have internet access and devices are not a nice to have. They're an essential service in the modern economy. If digital literacy training is to be successful, then it must adopt adult learning principles. This is the second step in ensuring the success of a digital literacy program. Adult learners appreciate programs that address relevant challenges in their lives and provide solutions that are immediately useful. They also want to be actively involved in the learning process. Remember, our research showed that AET learners and youth believe that digital literacy skills will help them to find work and or get a promotion. Adults need a purpose behind their learning in order for them to be motivated. In our desktop research, we found that many of the skills needed for digital literacy are similar to the skills described by SATCAP as critical cross-field outcomes. Critical cross-field outcomes are a requirement for all unit standards and qualifications. The table on this slide shows how some of the critical cross-field outcomes directly speak to digital literacy skills. For example, collect, analyze, and organize information is a common outcome expected of a training unit standard. This outcome can be taught by introducing online searches and how to assess online information sources. As researchers, we concluded that this means a trainer can introduce digital literacy teaching into the existing courses in any field of study. There's no reason for digital literacy skills teaching to not appear in any course of study. Thus, the best way to ensure digital literacy skills teaching meets the needs of youth and aid learners is to include these skills in programs that grow the work readiness of young people and improve the prospects for promotion for mine workers. Remember, our research found this is a major motivating factor for learners to acquire more digital skills.
So are there any options for a dedicated module on digital literacy skills that could be used at a mine site? Well, there are some well-developed ideas and products in the public and private sector to help you. The first product is for the youth. The sayouth.mobi app is one component of the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention and is supported by the Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator, the Department of Employment and Labour, the Department of Higher Education and Training, the National Youth Development Agency, and the Development Bank of South Africa. Any young person between the ages of 15 to 35 can register on this app. The site is zero rated for data and designed for use on a smartphone. Once a person is registered on the sayouth.mobi site, it provides access to training on basic digital literacy skills and access to the Microsoft 360 training suite. Once a course is completed, then learners get a certificate. And of course, this is useful then for employment prospects. Young people registered on this site are also then automatically registered on a national database for further employment opportunities. Using sayouth.mobi is really a no-brainer. It costs nothing and can make a difference. The second product available to a mine is the Pearson Digital Literacy Citizenship Training Program, designed in South Africa for the African market. The Digital Literacy Citizenship course is developed by Pearson, the education publishing company. This course is for the African market and discusses the same 5 digital skill areas I highlighted earlier. It costs between 500 to 700 rands per learner, depending on how many learners are registered at a particular learning site. Learners can register directly with Pearson, or the course can be made available on a customized learning platform, such as those already in use at a mine training center. The course appears appropriate for both AET and youth learners, although this would need to be piloted. The course is not designed to be used on a smartphone, therefore tablets or laptops must be made available to support learning. The Digital Literacy Citizenship course has 3 levels: beginner, everyday, and savvy. There is a quiz to assist learners to know where to start in the learning program. The course is designed as 100 hours learning in total. There are lots of interactive questions, learning points, and exercises. It is designed as a standalone product, or it can be used as facilitated learning with a teacher in the room, speaking to the blended learning experience, which has been raised earlier. Our research found that AET and youth learners preferred to attend classes where there is a facilitator to help them navigate learning rather than battle through by themselves. Presently, there are no products in the South African market that talk directly to the development of digital skills within the mining space. This means that there is opportunity in the market for the development of a mining Pacific module. To be successful, this module must apply research insights about what is important, such as utilizing adult learning principles and integrating digital learning into the context of work readiness and promotion.
There are several advantages to customized training programs. The main one being that a new course can address the specific challenges faced by mining communities and mine workers. Another advantage is the course can be tailored to fit with an existing program. A customized module also provides opportunity for new partnerships and branding. However, considerable capacity and resources are necessary to develop a training course, and this may prohibit this type of development. It also takes time to develop teaching and learning programs. These factors should be weighed up before the sector embarks on the journey of customized training. Should your company or mine decide to develop a customized digital learning package, then it is necessary to host this on a learning management system. Our desktop review considered the options available. For example, in some cases, learners will access these sites through an app that is downloaded to a smartphone. In this way, learners become responsible for their own learning. There are a number of open access platforms available, such as Moodle. However, they require regular management and updating. The choice of a digital platform depends on a number of criteria. In our research, we provide some guidance about this. A key recommendation is that the mine first consider the following questions before making a choice. What are the limitations of the IT department in terms of time availability and knowledge of the system? What kind of support can be offered by the provider of the open source platform to you as a client, as well as to the end user? Will the learning management system be usable on any mobile device for learners on the move, or will it be restricted to use in a learning center? How easy will it be to integrate with other mine software systems? And what kind of reporting is offered about learner performance and course effectiveness? Thus, the development of a customized digital literacy module provides us with an opportunity to do things better. The research team developed an exemplar module to demonstrate the art of the possible. In our module, we use the character Kulani to explain the digital world. Kulani is introduced to learners as a mine worker from the Eastern Cape. Our module, Becoming a Digital Citizen, is planned for maximum adoption across the sector. Learners would access it on a cell phone, and it does not rely on elaborate animated graphics, thus ensuring data usage is low. It is targeted at learners who are grade 12 or NQF level 4. It is informed by our research findings and can be used as standalone learning or taught in a classroom setting. Creatively, we have used storytelling as a mechanism to access the digital world, but draw heavily on the mining context to create meaning for digital literacy and to ensure information is relevant. We approach the learner with empathy to support a positive learning experience. To find out more about our report, our research and written report, please visit the RTIMS dashboard, which will be provided, the details of which will be provided by Marius in the next session. But thank you to listening to this, which provided about the research. And I'm now going to hand over to Charlotte to find out more from Kulani. Thank you. Charlotte, if you'll share your screen, please.
Hi everybody, can you see our screen? Becoming a Digital Citizen.
Can see and hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so I want to first thank Ingrid and Nancy for going through that very simplified and much more accessible explanation of our research. As we have mentioned, all of the details and more of the information is available on the RTIMS folders. And what we want to encourage us to do today is, please, once the link has been posted of this exemplar module, go and do it yourself. I promise you'll actually enjoy it. You'll have some fun. You'll laugh at yourself and you'll laugh at the quiz and some of the sections that are covered. We're going to work through this as quickly as we can because we appreciate that our time is limited, and it's actually designed to be followed through personally by you so that you can experience the whole effect. So before the learner starts, this is just a course overview that they will see, explaining that they are entering the digital world. It's about a discovery process which really helps them to get excited as opposed to fearful and bearing negative emotions regarding the process. And then it will explain that the course is going to cover these 5 areas that have been mentioned already. Those 5 key skills of finding information, communicating, creating content, collaborating online, being safe and responsible. And as Nancy already discussed, the critical cross-field outcomes speak to these so well that it's already answering the NQF and the SATCAP framework for course design. So then the learner will click on to start the course. And as you'll see here, on the left-hand side, there is a very logical flow of the different areas that are going to be covered in the course. And today we're going to give you a quick recap and navigation overview of what we have done and why. So our research report indicates that the current digital literacy training programs that are available cover the areas that we have focused on. What we're now going to demonstrate quickly is an example of a customizable option based on these skills. So we really want to mention again that certain elements can be changed, removed, added to. But for our exemplar module, we focused on the skill of finding information online. So if you have a look towards the bottom, that's the focus, search for information. And I think you'll agree with us that this is a critical skill. It can also be seen as a gateway entry point for digital literacy. And if you think back to your first exposure to the online world, I'm not going to tell you when mine was because I'll give my age away, but I remember being really bombarded by information and feeling overwhelmed. At varsity, we actually didn't learn how to use search engines, how to check for credibility of information. And so this is a really important entry skill. And as you'll see, our theme is discovering your digital world. And we are again creating a healthy distinction between the physical world and the online world, but also connecting the two, which is a reality for the world, both in our homes and our workplaces. So we've already introduced you to Alani. He is our main character, and he really is creating a theme that can identify with our learners. So our learners are really going to be taken through a very supportive process. They can relate to his struggles. He brings in the supportive elements, some of the humor, and this gives a little bit of profile of his story, why he needs to learn. He is a mind worker. The mind is modernizing. And then we will move into, firstly, are you a digital citizen quiz? And we felt this was important because people come into digital literacy training on different levels. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm not going to do the whole quiz, but I'm going to take you through a few of the questions. And as we start the quiz, we'll see that the aim for this module is to have the text on the screen, but also supported by audio where it is necessary, because we are aware of learning difficulties, also being sensitive to different learning styles, literacy. So the first question, do you have a smartphone? Yes, no, I'm smarter than my phone. This is to integrate some of the humor. And at the bottom, once we say submit, it'll say incorrect. And it does it in a very supportive way so that this is not seen to be a test and it's not judging the learner, but it's helping them in their process. I can't use a smartphone to, and let's just say click with the mouse. And let's say submit. And there, the answer comes through correct. So it gives different options. It takes the learner through a process that starts off quite basically and then moves in complexity throughout the quiz. Very general questions, but are testing overall understanding and looking at those various digital literacy skills. I can communicate with my work team via email, WhatsApp group, yes, no, only when I'm in the right mood. So if we click on yes, submit, we'll see correct, and we move on. So this will go on to question 20. Once they have completed the quiz, it will then give them a result, and it will pop up with this quiz results screen. So it asks, how did you do in our digital citizen quiz? And then the results are based on the score. And you'll see the way that the wording is written. It's very positive, very encouraging. So it's not, you don't know anything, you are a digital newbie. If you didn't get beyond a certain point, you've made a good start. Don't worry, we're going to help you. A little bit higher, you're an able traveler. Again, speaking to that theme of this being a world, that you will increase your skills and your confidence as you practice more, as you navigate more, and then up to a savvy citizen. We would then continue with that, and speaking back to the learner, bringing back the learning to them, because for an adult learner, they need to be personally involved and know why they are undertaking a learning journey. Otherwise, they're not going to participate. How would you like the digital world to help you? And our learner can say what they want to do. You know, anything from starting off with creating an email address, which our research indicated is a need for most of our target group, right through to shopping online, banking online, which are more sophisticated skills. We then move on to getting started. And what we want to point out here is that this is an entire program. We are just focusing on that one key digital skill today. So in the program, which will be available on the items folder, you will see the structure, the actual guide that is aligned with NQF principles and is following the critical cross-field outcomes. But we are now taking you through the process that a learner would be exposed to from the introduction of this module to focusing on searching for information. So in the first modules, they would have focused on getting started. And here you can see Kalani is speaking. He is explaining why he needs to learn these skills as an upcoming team leader. He needs to get his next ticket. And our narrator is a positive and supportive presence. And they will say, don't worry, you're making progress. We're going to help you. So now we would move into a reviewing of key terms. And what we've done in terms of the application of best practice learning is that first you check knowledge and then you review. So this information would have been pre-taught, but now we need to check. And these activities are designed to coach the learner through the correct answers. So here, match the word to its correct meaning, tap, drag, and drop in the correct place. And this is practicing navigational skills, which are very important and are actually part and parcel of digital literacy, but are usually taught in a more of a computer literacy format. So what's an email address? And you can see you've got different options. Actually have to read, have to click the correct answer. If you don't click the correct answer, you won't be able to move on. So in a way, it actually teaches the learner again if they haven't been able to remember the information or they need to be supported. And then once we've moved through that, we then continue with some more terms. You can see again, we haven't done too much per activity. Just a quick note here that learning online is far more intense. We have recommended that a blended learning approach is taken so that we can accommodate mine operations existing infrastructure. So if they've got in-classroom learning, if they've got a facilitator that's available in person or online, if they've got computer labs, we want to recommend that the infrastructure is considered, but that they also remember that a learner needs support. And in the support, you don't want to overload with information in terms of your activities and your reviewing of knowledge. And then we'll move on to living smarter. Now, I'd just like to point out here, can we see that the tone is remaining positive? So we are constantly emphasizing the benefits of technology as opposed to how difficult it is, how much needs to be learned. We want to create a really upbeat and uplifting tone, that helps with the learning process. So under Living Smarter, again, you can see our theme is carried through, and I just wanted to make a note here that we've worked with a really talented illustrator and a designer. And the reason why we've worked on these images is that it really just keeps the whole theme very real, because mining is a practical sector. It's extremely practical, and we want to keep that human element and that human feel working throughout, so that this is not seen to be a sterile and very robotic environment, that humans are at the center. And at the beginning of our SATCAP presentation, we saw that the aim is to understand the impact of the fourth industrial revolution on people and to keep our technology human-centric. And that's really important, even as we help our learners and our employees to navigate this world, that they remember that they are at the center. They're not here to be controlled by machines or systems. So here we focused on learning how to use a search engine. Again, we said that in our final development, we'd want this information to be recorded in an audio that can be used. And here we can see there's a conversation taking place, between Kholani and the narrator. I'm not going to go through too much of this because we'd really like you to do this on your own and go through the detail. And let's focus now on our module that we said is the most important, searching for information. So like we mentioned, searching for information is a critical skill. If we don't have this skill, we actually can't begin to navigate higher order thinking and critical thinking skills within digital literacy. So this is a starting point. And again, we are linking this back to the mining sector. We're saying to Kholani, think about the information that's available on mining. Some is old, some is new, some isn't accurate. But the digital world gives us access to everything. If it's in electronic form, we need to know how to find it and then to test if it's what we're looking for. So we take our learner via our character's journey through the process. And we say, first we ask ourselves simple questions. What am I looking for? What do I need to know? So now we've chosen the theme of money problems. From our research, understanding the mining environment, money woes is a big issue, debt, financial management. We've said that Kholani is wanting to become a team leader. He'll need to be able to give his team members advice. And this means that he needs to get money savvy. So we first start off with using keywords, otherwise known as meta tags, and we are helping our learner to now understand, how do I look for information online? So that's the first step, and we show what happens if you just put in, finance, or you just put in money. You get very generic results, they're not helpful. Now what happens if you put in specific keywords? Well, you get better results. Dealing with finance problems, okay? And then how do you make sense of the results? Because they all come through as URLs, web addresses, and we don't really know how to read that. And then we, again, working with some interactivity here. We want to click on the plus lines on the image to see what each section is. And you can see here, these are searching the keywords. And this is very helpful because, again, smartphone, this is what a learner is probably going to see as opposed to a desktop or an iPad or a tablet. And then we bring the learner back into time to practice. So we give them some examples of what they can look up. And then we give them an external link to search on Google, where they will actually go and practice. And what we've wanted to mention here that is important is that this customized option is very, very low in data requirements and can be zero data rated. We have not used videos and lots of animation because it becomes impossible on a practical level. So yeah, we can use visuals, we can use some navigation. We want to make it as accessible as possible. And then we will go into our lesson review. And here you can see Kholani, our main character, he's saying, okay, I've gone through that now, and we've asked the learner, how do they feel? This is really important to keep re-engaging with the learner, remembering that especially if they are doing this course primarily online. We've got to keep them engaged, speak to their heart, not just their head. They can say how they felt about it. They can go back if they want. We give them a summary of what they've learnt, and then we review the key terms, and we will finish off with a reflection exercise, which is really important in our experiential learning model. We know that reflection is key for learning to take place. So we ask our learner to think, how can they use this new skill in their daily life? And they will work through this and think, okay, there's actually a variety of opportunities. And then we give them a preview in what is coming next. So this is just a quick overview. We'd really encourage you, if you can, to go through the link once it's posted, look at it and see and check the opportunities for customizing in your own operation, and the fact that it might be a good solution together with an existing course where you've got very specific needs and specific skills that need to be transferred and cultivated. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Charlotte. And we've got good time to take some questions, comments, insights, feedback, please, anything. And I think probably you could put your hands up, or you could just start asking. There's not too many questions. And I also just want to reiterate and thank the research team for all the insights that over the last while, what's it been, almost a year. Yeah, 6 months. So there was firstly a question from Hanli, and then from Mbali and Sibusiso. So Hanli, if you want to go first, and maybe if you can just introduce yourself when you ask the question, please.
Thank you so much. Apologies. I'm Hanli van Vuren. I'm the head of Occupational Health and Safety at Solidarity. I see someone else is asking about language, so I'm not going to go there. I've noted on the page where you had a sort of a definition for what an email address is. And I think that your definition for an email address is a bit confusing. Apologies for, I didn't want to comment on the contents, but I think you said something in the line of it's a set of letters. If I'm new to email, I first need to know that there is a page where letters can come in and go out, and that I can write letters, but that someone can post it to me, similar to the old type of post office. But this is then the virtual equivalent to that. The incumbent needs to be able to understand first the language, and then the terminology, and to be get acquainted with that. So I don't know if this is the full program, but maybe consider, if it is, to put in another page or lecture on what a website is. What is a page in a website? And email addresses is one such page where you can go to your personal digital post office to get your mail and to send mail to somebody else. That was just what my thoughts are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hanli. I'm going to ask if we can have a couple of questions, and then we can pass them around to the different researchers can respond. Mbali, I see you have raised a question around what about language barrier issues, and Rendani's worried about the entry level, NQF level 4 is way too high for a typical A learner. And if I can just ask Sibusiso, if you can ask your question, and then I'll hand over to Charlotte and Nancy to respond, and any of the other researchers. Sibusiso?
Thank you, Ingrid. I've got two questions. First one is around trainee or learner verification. How do you verify that the person that's actually doing the training is CISO? Because at mines normally, or more in most instances, our training is competency training, and you wouldn't want to be in a situation where training is done on behalf of another person. So I just wanted to, if the researcher can address that. And secondly, is the feasibility around device accessibility, especially from the employer side, as to, did the researchers look into how feasible is this to have maybe every employee have a device, maybe in terms of will they be able to subsidize such an initiative? Are they prepared to do so? Something like of that sort. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm from the Minerals Council Mosh Task Team. Thank you, Ingrid.
Thank you, Sibusiso. I'm going to hand over to Charlotte. I see you've got your mic off and ready to take some of those questions, and then I'll hand over to some of the other researchers. And just if you answer the ones that you can. Thanks.
Yes. Well, firstly, I want to thank our, I don't know what to call our esteemed guests from different places for their feedback. And just to give a little bit of a step back, we were briefed from the beginning of this project that it needs to be at an NQF level 4. So although we did put our hands up and said, we need to be very aware of language, of learners' abilities, where they are in terms of their AIA training, that is the brief. So we've tried to honor that. That's something that SATCAP feels needs to be put in place. Otherwise, the level is too low. And also the understanding is that digital literacy is actually a critical thinking skill. It's not computer literacy. So that would already need to be in place, and it need to be basic language competency in place. But Rendani, it's a really important, and Mbali, it's an important consideration. I think it needs to be fleshed out, based on the mining operation and the profile of the learners. And then in terms of the definitions, Hanley, thank you. That's such a good point. As part of adult learning, every module will actually have a glossary that is pre-taught, where there's contributions to the information. What we did today was just to show you the flow, and it's not really a sort of a cut and dry. It's also based on the facilitator, the existing knowledge, and then in terms of the identification, that would definitely be part of a course. There would need to be a sign up, with the learners' full details. I don't want to get into hot water and talk about, fingerprint technology, but whatever the mining operation is using to validate, a learner's actual, their identity, and if they are completing the course, that would need to be considered. So I can see some hands have gone up, but I'm not sure if I should stay in the hot seat. But let's see what those questions are.
Ingrid was asking that I also respond, so I'm going to add myself to the hot seat, Charlotte.
Thank you, Nancy.
I wanted to maybe comment on the level and the language. I mean, this was a difficult issue for this piece of research. And it's difficult for a couple of reasons. One of the difficulties we faced in the research, which we didn't go into now in the findings, but has been raised, is the state of AET learning generally in the sector. So, for example, we did find on one of our case study sites that there were actually just a handful of employees registered on the AIT training program. And instead, the places were filled with community members. So there may also be a lot of transition and flux within the AET training program itself in different sites, which makes it quite difficult to say how much time, energy, investment would we as researchers recommend into that training program, which is why then we went with level 4. Partly also we went with level 4 because our sense is that as minds modernize, if you were coming onto a mine now as a young person, there's a very high chance that you will have completed schooling. So if we start our training at a level which is below NQF level 4, it may be that it also quickly becomes outdated. And it does take time to develop these kind of customized products. So we really have to be looking like forward rather than backwards in terms of who we think we might be targeting. I think it's a very difficult issue. And it needs a kind of a look across different commodities, for example. What's the likely future of different commodities? Where would this kind of module be placed, and the kind of commitment to digital literacy training and maybe the involvement of local communities in that process. And I think that would then inform any kind of final customized module. I also think a customized module, one of the advantages too, is there's no reason why a multitude of languages couldn't be included into it. You know, there are everyday terms that people might use. It can be included into a module which is customized. So that would be one of the advantages, to kind of mix the languages somewhat. So those are some of my thoughts.
Nancy, did you want to comment on Cecilia's second question around the feasibility of accessibility to devices?
Oh, yes. That was such a good question, Cecile. It was not a research objective to look at that. I mean, I think that is such an interesting question, because I mean, it really was the standout finding that you cannot develop these skills in isolation to access to devices and broadband. So, I mean, I really think it's a bigger issue around commitment, really. What is the sector's appetite, or what is the appetite in different commodities to really invest in this area? Because if there was investment, it will definitely develop. There's no doubt about that, because so much of this learning is through trial and error. And I think a course can complement it. It can make people more articulate. And I think that's why even we found as researchers, we're doing things, but we don't have the language for it. Doing a training program helps you have the language to explain to others what you're doing. And I think, you know, facilitators and managers on mines would benefit from this kind of training too. But I do think it's access. Access will change everything. So I think your comment is well made, Sybil Cecil, and is something which needs to be considered. You know, what's the appetite for investment in this area? The social and labour plans really, you know, as the framework for those social and labour plans was developed in 2010. And now as we move more into this digital world, to a certain extent, those guidelines are outdated. And it would be very helpful if they included a commitment to the development of a digital economy, because it is the way things are going to go, not just for mining, but just generally. So yes, I think your comment is well made.
Thanks very much. Shireen, you've had your hand up for a while if you want to ask.
So Ingrid, maybe I don't want to ask. I just want to make a comment around the ABET level 4. I think Nancy has already indicated that if you look at the different commodities, In some of the commodities, obviously, much of the workforce is already literate in terms of already having AS level 4, whereas if you look at other commodities, lots of the learners are actually sitting at AS level 3 from a qualification point of view, from an NQF level point of view. So for us, it actually becomes concerning because as the mind's modern, obviously, the workforce needs to be able to use, modern technology as well as modern software, etc. And are we actually readying our employees for this eventuality? So if we were to look at some of the commodities, potentially they would need to look at uplifting the workforce in terms of their literacy levels so that we are able to provide for job preservation, because, we don't want to put workers at risk by saying that they are not ready to embrace digital technologies, etc. And hence we feel that a digital literacy program needs to actually pitched at a level which allows for also uplifting our employees so that we are able to preserve jobs into the future, so that we can allow for upskilling, reskilling, and preservation. And hence, we're actually sitting at this level when we do think about digital literacy. Thanks so much.
Thanks for those comments, Shireen. I don't know if there are any other questions. And if they're not, if any of the researchers wanted to contribute to some key insights from the research. Nothing. Charlotte, you wanted to comment, yes?
I'd love to just share something interesting. So at one of the mining sites, because we had 2 case studies, what we found is that mines have introduced their own apps. So they've got different names. We won't name any, name and shame. But the issue there was the incentive. So employees were told, okay, we now have a mining app. You have ABC different resources. But they either didn't have the right phone, or they didn't have access to data, or there was actually no immediate and visible benefit for using the app. So again, you can see the disconnect, between the conversations that are being had on a senior sort of executive level. Well, we need a mining app. We need to embrace, 4IR, and people on the ground who are actually, working and providing the workforce don't understand the link, and there isn't real benefit there. So, the hope is that in helping someone to navigate the digital world, they immediately start to see the benefits, how they can improve their knowledge, that they can study online without actually having to pay to sign up, or they can access bursaries and they can access different opportunities. So that's also something that we need to consider, is the perceptions regarding the digital world. We've got different perceptions in our workplaces and in a very corporate space, but those are different, based on the community and the people that you are speaking to.
I see we've got 3 seconds left, so we might be kicked out. Not almost. Yes. Sorry, Charlotte, to jump in there. I thought they were going to just cut us out.
Yes. I think we need to leave.
Oh, we've got 50 seconds to leave. But I just wanted to thank you all very much for participating and joining this room. And also just to highlight that if you have any questions, you're very welcome to either submit them through the chat as we continue along with the workshop, or to email any of the researchers. You can email me. I will maybe my email in the chat. And then also to encourage you, once the RTIM site becomes active, to actually review what will be there. So this presentation will be there, the course will be accessible there, the exemplar module, our research findings will be available, and then also links to some of the programs that we highlighted in the course. So that will all be accessible through the RTIM's link, which Marius will show in the next one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we have to leave. Cheers, thanks very much. Welcome back. We'll just wait for everyone to get back, and then we can continue with the questions. I think we have 5 minutes. So if there is any further discussion.
Ingrid and Barley had a lovely comment about maybe some studies being needed on helping mine workers to take ownership, of their digital literacy experience. I don't know if that's something that we could even chat about. It just really struck me as we picked it up in the research, but it's probably a broader conversation.
Barley, would you like to comment on that, or would you prefer not to to just sort of elaborate?
So yeah, I was just thinking, thanks Ingrid. I was just thinking along the lines, so if we were, as a mining company, were to buy cell phones, smartphones for all the employees, to be able to gain access, and then say, for example, we provide them with data. So how then do we ensure that, the miners actually take ownership of the provisions made by the company? I'll give you an example: not losing their phones, or not, not lying that my phone was stolen every second month. So I think it would be really interesting for mining companies to look into that and really critically see what strategies they would use to ensure that miners take ownership. I know I've worked in a mine. I know how miners can behave.
You're diplomatic, Mbali.
I'm offended, Mbali.
Nancy, if you wanted to respond, and then I see Jill's got a question.
Tough.
So, Mbali, I mean, I think these are interesting points, and there's a lot of learning which is in the occupational health and safety area about PPE, expensive hearing defenders, for example. I think there are case studies that can be learned. But you see, for me, there's something about being very forward thinking, which I think is going to become increasingly important. And, my background actually is in public health and in community development. And recently some research has been done at the University of the Western Cape, looking at a more appropriate list of indicators for who is at risk for COVID-19. And the research found that it was people living in multi-generation households and households without a car, where people were most at risk for severe consequence from COVID-19. And then the researcher concluded that, for example, if we'd had these kind of indicators and insights, why was it that these households weren't protected and perhaps encouraged to use online resources for things like, shopping or getting supplies such as chronic medication to their homes? But of course, all of these options are not available to these households because they won't be on broadband and they probably don't have a device. So I think, the kind of, even the paradigm in which we view community development needs to dramatically change and can dramatically change through digital technologies. And so I think what this project is really highlighting is really the opportunity for that. But we need to be brave. And I think it would be a brave step by a company to say we're going to make a device available. Also think about how smartphones are used to support learning for the children of mine workers. Usually these children can be very disadvantaged just because they just don't have access. So, some brave steps I think are necessary.
Thanks, Nancy. Jill.
So I just wanted to make one or two comments on the sample of the digital literacy module that was made. And one of the concerns being, of course, language. And even at NQF level 4, in fact, at whatever level you set your course, you have people who are more comfortable as listening learners and those who are happier to read. And so I think when people have an opportunity to go back and have a look at it again, you'll notice that there are inserts which say you can listen. And so this will greatly help the language barrier that people will have, even if they are coming in at NQF4. And another thing is the structure in which this module has been created takes into cognizance all the principles of adult learning. And that is so important. And that's what will bring buy-in and all of that, because looking at so many of the programs that we have out there that have hit the digital space during our pandemic, they are not user-friendly in terms of actual adult learning principles. So congratulations to, I know, Charlotte and Rose, who had the biggest hand in actually developing that module, that it really works. And if we keep those things in mind, whatever is developed and customized would be successful. Won't just become a white elephant that people say is useless, because there's buy-in. It's personally relevant to the minor. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Jill. Sibusisa, I think you've got your hand up. You want to add something else?
Yes, last bite. In 2 minutes. Maybe to my earlier question on learner verification or validation, I think it's very important that we look into those fingerprints, Charlotte, because most of our training, you know, has got legal connotations onto it. It's competency training, so you wouldn't want to be in an environment where someone can conduct or do training on behalf of the other person, and we deem the operation as being competent on a particular competency, yet the results or the performance shows otherwise. So I think when we consider this digital learning, the security, verification, validation, part of it is very critical, and maybe hence we need to explore as to how can we incorporate it, especially considering that it's not a controlled environment where there's a facilitator, someone who can verify that the person, the training is actually conducted by the intended person. Thank you, Ingrid.
Thanks, Sibusisa. And I think also it'll be similar in the other projects. And I think this is where some of the technology can actually help. So fingerprints being one, but I mean, facial recognition is becoming more and more common with cell phones, you know, to unlock your cell phone. So that's also possibly a way. So I think there definitely are solutions to what you're raising. And I see we've got 30 seconds to leave again. So I just wanted to thank you very much for your participation, and please do contact us if you need further info or want to engage more on this topic. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.